Okay, so what we said is that as a firm expands, increases all of its factor production, is able to buy more of its fixed factor production, its scale changes. And what we said is that it's possible that as a result of an increase in that capacity that the firm then uses, in other words, both an increase in demand and an increase in capacity, it's possible that what happens is that there is a decrease in average costs, an economy of scale. In other words, that a big firm using its assets effectively has a lower cost than a small firm using its assets effectively. So why might that be? Why might that be? What are our examples of internal economies of scale? And referring back to what we mean by scale, scale can change as a result of either organic growth, where you invest in your own capacity, or through mergers and takeovers where you buy somebody else. Both of those can lead to internal economies of scale. So what are these examples of economies of scale? Firstly, what you might get are what are called physical economies of scale. These are often also known as increasing returns to scale. You'll sometimes see that phrase where you double your inputs, so all of your factor inputs double, but your output, you get a more than 2 times increase in output, and as a result, your unit costs are going to come down. Classic examples of these, one of these is what's called area volume relationships, and this is the reason that we have giant warehouses and giant supertankers. Imagine that I have a warehouse. This is a bit mathsy. Imagine that I have a warehouse like that, that has a side of one, and a side of one. It has obviously 6 sides of area 1, and it has a volume of 1, of 1 times 1 times 1, has a volume of 1. Imagine I double my warehouse now in all dimensions. So I take my original warehouse, there it is, it's a bit too big now. I take my original warehouse like that, and then I double it this way, and I double it this way. It's always been my strong point, as I'm sure you can see. I double it this way. So it's doubled in all dimensions, So what we've now got is it's 2 wide, 2 high, and 2 deep. So how many sides does it have? Well, it has, obviously it's still got 6 sides, but each of those sides is 1, 1, 1, 1. Each one of those sides is 1 times 1, So its sides, the area of its sides is 24, 4 times as much, but its volume is 1, 2, 3, 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1 in the back right-hand corner, its volume is 8. So the sides have increased by 4 times, but the volume has increased by 8 times. And that's important because what it means is that the cost per cubic meter, the cost per area of space has gone down. And that's why you see these big warehouses, you see these big super tankers and so on. That's the most complicated one. Other physical ones are just very simple, which is the idea that big firms can make full use of mechanization, or production lines. They can make good use of technology to specialize and do division of labor. Small firms can't do that. There's not much point in a small firm getting a huge automated production line if it's only making 5 cars. It'll never get its money back. So only big firms can make full use of automated equipment. But when they do that, their cost per unit is going to be lower. Imagine you've got a firm making handmade sports cars, versus a different, because it only makes say 15 a year, versus a firm that's kind of turning them out by the second because it's got mass production. Obviously, it's got less labor costs. Per car, it's going to be much more efficient, and that's a physical economy of scale. Other economies of scale are slightly more obvious. So, secondly, you have purchasing economies. This is the idea that big firms place big orders. They have what's sometimes called monopsony A monopsony, is basically monopoly is where there's one seller. Monopsony is where there's one buyer. So a big supermarket like Sainsbury's has a lot of power over its suppliers. Compared with a little farmer, Sainsbury's is huge. And therefore what they can do is they can put downward pressure on prices. They have more power in the negotiating process. It's the idea of bulk buying. But I think thinking about it as a kind of power relationship is more useful. A third one is managerial economies. So if an example I sometimes use in class is the idea of like a cruise ship. Suppose you double the size of your cruise ship. Well, you don't need 2 captains. So you can double your ship, but you don't need to double your staff. You don't need to double your managers. So therefore the cost per unit, again, is going to go down. But also, big firms can afford to employ specialist managers. You can get yourself a specialist buyer who will find you all the best deals, or a specialist accountant, who will help you to cut your costs. We pay these people a lot of money. Maybe we pay them £100,000 a year, which a small firm can't possibly afford because they're not going to have enough work. Whereas a big firm, they can pay £100,000 for this specialist accountant. The accountant's probably going to save them like £250,000 a year. And therefore, the firm's costs are lower. But they can only do that because there is so much work to be done. And lastly, most obviously, there are financial economies. Big business, so big firms, they have more assets. They've got more collateral. And therefore, banks like them. They're seen as safer by banks, because if they go bust, then we just take their assets and sell them. Therefore, they get lower interest rates. So, and again, therefore, their cost per unit is lower. So therefore, what does that then look like? Where are we? So what we've got is, we said that there's output, there's costs. There's the firm when it's initially very small. Then it expands, it gets economies of scale, as a result of which it gets bigger and its lowest cost gets lower. So this is the idea that Tesco, kind of a mid-sized Tesco in town is more efficient, has lower cost than the corner shop because things like buyer power. And as it keeps expanding, what we're saying is, so that's a mid-sized firm, that's the short run average cost curve for a big firm, that's the short run average cost curve for a huge firm. And what we're saying is that every different capacity of this firm has a different short run average cost curve. So I could add in some intermediate ones. I could add in some more like that. There's another one, 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 there's another one. Every possible size of this firm has its own short run average cost curve. And what we can say, therefore, is that the firm can choose where it wants to be. That is this firm's long run average cost curve. As we move from one scale to another, the long run average cost curve is showing the firm its various options. What plans could it have? Where could it be? It's saying if you had 700 students, going back to our school example, then you could have an average cost of whatever that is, X, it doesn't really matter. And to get that, you would need to be on this short run average cost curve here. So the long run average cost curve is just made up of all of the short run average cost curves. So if you're showing economies of scale, what you should always do is make very sure that you show the change in scale. So what you want to do is draw a bit like this. You can draw your long run average cost curve like that. That's fine. But what you want to do is to show that you understand that we're moving from one short run average cost curve, SRAC1, to another, SRAC2. So you're not just showing an increase in output, you're showing that you understand that scale has changed.